Now listen carefully. There comes a moment in your life, yeah, I'm talking to you, when everything you thought you knew gets challenged. Not to break you, but to wake you up. And most people, they run from that moment. They hide behind what they were told, what they grew up with, what feels comfortable. But let me tell you something real. Comfort don't grow you. Comfort keeps you stuck. Now imagine this. You sitting there hearing two different truths about the same man. One says he is God. The other says he is a messenger of God. And right there, right in that tension, you got a choice. You can either shut down or you can level up. See, weak people get emotional. Strong people get curious. You got to understand something. Your faith should be so solid, so rooted, that hearing another perspective don't shake you. It sharpens you. It refines you, because truth don't need protection. Truth stands on its own. Now let's go deeper. There's a version of Jesus in Islam, respected, honored, loved as a prophet, a man of miracles, a man of purity, a man sent by God. And then there's the version in Christianity, seen as the Son of God, divine, the Savior. Two powerful perspectives, two paths of belief. But here's where it gets real. The problem ain't the difference. The problem is how you react to the difference. Because if the moment you hear something different, you get angry, defensive, emotional, that ain't faith. That's fear. That's insecurity. That's attachment to identity, not connection to truth. Let me say that again. If you can't hear something without getting emotional, you're not strong, you're attached. And attachment is the enemy of growth. See, when you are truly grounded, when you know who you are, when your purpose is clear, you can sit in a room, hear anything, and still stand firm. You don't need to argue. You don't need to prove. You don't need to fight. Because your peace, your understanding, your connection with God, that's internal. That don't come from winning debates. That comes from seeking truth with humility. Now listen, some of y'all been taught to defend your beliefs like it's a war. Like if someone says something different, you gotta shut it down. But what if I told you growth don't come from shutting down conversations? It comes from opening your mind. Because every time you listen with intention, not emotion, you evolve. And evolution is the whole point. You think God gave you a mind just to repeat what you heard. No. He gave you a mind to think, to reflect, to understand, to grow. But you can't do that if you're emotionally attached to being right. That's ego. And ego will block every blessing, every revelation, every ounce of wisdom trying to reach you. Now here's the shift. When you start detaching emotionally, you start seeing clearly. You stop reacting and you start reflecting. You stop defending and you start discovering. And that's power. Real power ain't loud. It ain't aggressive. It ain't trying to prove a point. Real power is calm, it's centered, it listens, it understands. Because it knows truth reveals itself to those who are ready. So whether you see Jesus one way or another, the deeper question is this: are you growing? Are you seeking? Are you becoming better? Because at the end of the day, it's not just about what you believe, it's about how your belief transforms you. Does it make you more patient, more disciplined, more connected to your purpose? Or does it just make you argumentative, defensive, stuck? You got to ask yourself that. Because God don't reward noise. He rewards sincerity. He rewards effort. He rewards those who are willing to rise above ego and step into understanding. And when you reach that level, you don't fear differences anymore. You learn from them. You grow through them. And most importantly, you stay grounded in who you are without needing the world to agree with you. That's strength. That's maturity. That's transformation. Truth has a strength that does not depend on human approval, opinion, or agreement. It stands firm whether people accept it or reject it. When you truly understand this, you stop feeling threatened by new information, different beliefs, or unfamiliar perspectives. Instead of reacting with fear or defensiveness, you begin to lean in with curiosity and calmness. Because real truth does not crumble under examination. It becomes clearer. A person who is insecure in their understanding feels the need to protect what they believe at all costs. They avoid questions, resist dialogue, and sometimes even attack opposing views. But that reaction is not a sign of strong faith or deep conviction. It is a sign that something inside is unsettled. When your foundation is solid, you don't panic when challenged. You listen, you reflect, and you grow. Understanding does not weaken belief, it refines it. It removes blind spots and replaces assumptions with clarity. It forces you to separate what is inherited from what is truly understood. And in that process, your connection to truth becomes more personal, more conscious, and more unshakable. The moment you stop fearing understanding is the moment you step into real confidence. Because now you are not just holding on to belief, you are building it, strengthening it, and living it with awareness instead of uncertainty. Faith, when it stands alone without understanding, can easily drift into confusion. A person may believe deeply, but without seeking knowledge, they may not fully grasp what they believe or why they believe it. This creates a fragile foundation, one that can be shaken by simple questions or different perspectives. On the other hand, knowledge without humility becomes its own trap. It fills a person with information, but empties them of wisdom. They begin to feel superior, thinking they have all the answers, and in that pride, they stop growing. There is a balance that must exist. Faith gives you direction, purpose, and connection to something greater than yourself. Knowledge gives you clarity, structure, and depth. But humility is what allows both to work together. Without humility, knowledge becomes arrogance. Without knowledge, faith becomes blind. When you walk with both faith and knowledge, guided by humility, you become grounded. You are not easily shaken because you understand what you believe. At the same time, you remain open because you recognize there's always more to learn. That openness does not weaken you, it strengthens you. Growth happens in that space where belief is supported by understanding, and understanding is softened by humility. That is where clarity replaces confusion, and confidence replaces ego. The way Jesus is understood in Islam and Christianity is not a small detail. It shapes the entire foundation of how followers see God, revelation, and their relationship with the divine. In Islam, Jesus is honored as a mighty prophet, born miraculously, performing wonders by God's permission, and calling people back to the worship of one God. He is respected but not worshipped. In Christianity, Jesus is seen as divine, the Son of God, central to salvation, and the bridge between humanity and God. That belief transforms not only worship, but the entire understanding of grace, sacrifice, and redemption. Now, here's where many people get caught. They focus on proving which perspective is right instead of understanding what each belief system is trying to teach. When you step back, you begin to see that both perspectives carry deep spiritual weight, calling people toward devotion, discipline, and moral responsibility. But if you're emotionally attached to defending one side, you miss the opportunity to understand the depth behind both. You close the door on insight, and growth requires that door to stay open. When you approach this difference with calmness and clarity, not ego, you begin to see how belief shapes behavior, purpose, and identity. And that awareness allows you to strengthen your own understanding without being threatened by another. Spiritual maturity shows up in how you respond when your beliefs are tested, not when they are comfortably affirmed. Anybody can feel confident when they're surrounded by people who think the same way. But the real test comes when you hear something different, something that challenges your understanding. That's where maturity reveals itself. If you immediately shut down, get defensive, or refuse to listen, that's not strength, it's limitation. Being able to listen without losing your identity is a powerful skill. It means you are rooted. It means you know who you are and what you stand for, but you are not so fragile that another perspective can shake you. You don't feel the need to interrupt, argue, or prove a point. Instead, you observe, you process, and you think. This kind of listening requires emotional control. You have to separate your feelings from your ability to understand, because the moment emotion takes over, clarity disappears. But when you remain calm, you create space for deeper insight. Listening does not mean agreeing. It means giving yourself the opportunity to expand your awareness. And when you can do that while staying grounded in your values, you demonstrate true inner strength. That's what growth looks like, calm, centered, and unshaken. Emotional detachment is not about becoming cold, distant, or disconnected from what matters. It is about gaining control over your reactions so your emotions don't control your understanding. When you are emotionally attached to an idea, a belief, or an identity, you stop seeing things clearly. Every opposing view feels like an attack. Every question feels like a threat, and every difference feels personal. That kind of attachment clouds your judgment and limits your ability to grow. But when you learn to detach emotionally, something powerful happens. You create space between what you feel and how you respond. In that space, clarity begins to form. You start asking better questions, listening more deeply, and thinking more critically. You are no longer trying to defend your ego. You are trying to discover truth. This shift changes everything. You stop reacting impulsively and start responding intentionally. You don't rush to prove a point. You take time to understand it. And that level of control is not weakness, it is strength. Because anyone can react. That's easy. But it takes discipline to pause, to reflect, and to stay calm in the face of challenge. When you reach that level, you are no longer controlled by emotion. You are guided by purpose, clarity, and a deeper sense of truth. When you step back and look beyond labels, traditions, and differences, you begin to notice a powerful pattern. God's message across religions consistently calls people toward righteousness, discipline, and purpose. The details may vary, the interpretations may differ, but the core doubt is strikingly similar. Live with integrity, control your desires, be accountable for your actions, and align your life with something higher than your ego. Righteousness is not just about rituals or outward expressions. It is about the condition of your heart and the choices you make when no one is watching. Discipline is what keeps you steady when life becomes uncertain, when temptation pulls at you, or when emotions try to take control. And purpose is what gives your life direction, reminding you that you are not here randomly. You are here with responsibility. Many people get so focused on debating differences that they overlook these shared principles. They argue about forms but forget the foundation. But growth begins when you recognize that these teachings are not meant to divide you. They are meant to elevate you. When you internalize righteousness, discipline, and purpose, your life changes from the inside out. You become more aware, more intentional, and more grounded. And in that state, your connection with God becomes deeper, not because you argued better, but because you live better. When you become too attached to labels, whether it's a religion, a group, or an identity, you can unknowingly limit your ability to see deeper truths. Labels are meant to guide you, to give you a sense of belonging and direction, but they are not meant to confine your thinking. The moment you start believing that your label alone defines all truth, you close yourself off from reflection, growth, and deeper understanding. Attachment to labels often turns belief into a boundary instead of a bridge. Instead of exploring wisdom, you begin defending territory. You focus more on protecting your identity than expanding your awareness. And in that state, even valuable insights can be ignored simply because they come from outside your familiar circle. But when you loosen that attachment, not by abandoning your beliefs, but by holding them with awareness, you begin to see more clearly. You start to separate the essence of truth from the form it is presented in. You become less concerned with where an idea comes from and more concerned with whether it carries wisdom and meaning. This doesn't weaken your identity, it strengthens it. Because now your belief is not based on habit or inheritance, but on conscious understanding. And that kind of clarity allows you to grow beyond limitations while still staying rooted in what truly matters. True strength is not measured by how loudly you can defend your beliefs or how aggressively you can assert your opinions. Real strength shows up when you have the courage to question, the humility to listen, and the confidence to stand firm without needing to dominate the conversation. It is the ability to hold your convictions while remaining open to new perspectives, understanding that being challenged does not diminish your worth or your faith. Many people mistake loudness and defensiveness for power, but that is fear masquerading as strength. When someone challenges their ideas, they feel threatened, and instead of reflecting, they react. But the genuinely strong person doesn't need to react. They pause, they consider, and they choose how to respond intentionally. This takes confidence because it requires trusting in yourself and your foundation, knowing that you don't need to prove anything to anyone. Standing firm in your values while remaining open also builds respect, not just from others, but from yourself. You become someone who can navigate conflict with clarity and grace, who can explore differences without losing direction, and who can grow through dialogue instead of shutting it down. That is real strength, the ability to question respectfully, to listen deeply, and to act with integrity. It is power rooted in confidence, purpose, and self-awareness, not ego. And that is the kind of strength that transforms both your life and the lives of those around you. Understanding different perspectives is one of the most powerful tools you can cultivate on your spiritual journey. When you take the time to truly listen and comprehend a view that differs from your own, you are not betraying your faith, you are strengthening it. Growth comes from expanding your awareness, not from narrowing it. Every belief, every tradition, every interpretation carries wisdom that can deepen your understanding if you approach it with humility and openness. Too often, people see differences as threats. They think that hearing another perspective will weaken what they hold dear. But in reality, it does the opposite. It challenges you to examine your beliefs more closely, to question assumptions, and to strengthen your convictions where they are true. This process of reflection creates a faith that is alive, dynamic, and resilient. It is no longer inherited or assumed. It becomes personally understood and deeply rooted. At the same time, learning from other perspectives teaches empathy. You begin to recognize the humanity behind beliefs, the struggles, the intentions, and the desire for connection with the divine. That awareness softens judgment, encourages dialogue, and fosters unity without demanding compromise of your own principles. Ultimately, understanding others doesn't dilute your faith, it elevates it. It equips you to engage with the world thoughtfully, respond with wisdom, and embody a spirituality that is mature, confident, and transformative. This kind of understanding creates strength that is unshakable and purpose that is undeniable. The real transformation in life begins the moment you shift your focus from winning arguments to seeking growth. Too many people spend their energy trying to prove they are right, defending their perspective, and silencing anyone who disagrees. But that mindset keeps you trapped in ego, reacting instead of reflecting and measuring success by comparison rather than by personal progress. True growth doesn't come from convincing others. It comes from understanding yourself more deeply and allowing your experiences and insights to shape who you are. When you stop arguing to win, you create space to listen, to reflect, and to learn. You become open to ideas that challenge your assumptions, and instead of feeling threatened by them, you allow them to refine your understanding. This requires humility, courage, and patience because growth is rarely instant or easy. But each moment you choose understanding over defensiveness, each time you seek clarity instead of victory, you strengthen your mind, your spirit, and your character. Transformation is also about alignment, aligning your beliefs, your actions, and your purpose. When your focus shifts from ego-driven debates to seeking meaningful insight, your faith and your convictions become alive and authentic. You are no longer controlled by fear of being wrong or by the need to dominate others. Instead, you are guided by truth, clarity, and conscious intention. That is the kind of transformation that changes your life, your perspective, and the way you move through the world. Here's a powerful conclusion with a strong transformative message. At the end of the day, it's not about who is right or who is wrong. It's not about defending labels, winning arguments, or proving your point. The real victory comes when you rise above attachment, ego, and fear. True strength comes from the ability to listen without losing yourself, to seek truth without losing your peace, and to grow without compromising your purpose. When you detach emotionally, embrace understanding, and allow wisdom to guide your faith, you step into a power that no debate, no criticism, and no difference of opinion can shake. That is the kind of clarity, confidence, and inner freedom that transforms not just your beliefs, but your life. Seek growth, embody purpose, and let your connection with truth and God shape you into someone unshakable, unwavering, and unstoppable.